Guys, welcome back to the After Show, starring myself, Jeff, aka this week I am Boromir, not Messiah Cosplay, but I am joined by that Valkyrie girl, just like we were last week. We are talking about the Rings, the Lord of the Rings of Power, Season 2, and this week we're going to be catching up with episodes 3 and episodes 4. If you tuned in last week, you saw we did episodes 1 and 2. Just know that after this week, we will only be doing one episode per. We will no longer be doing
Yay!
The first week they dropped 3 episodes. We thought that would just be too much to try to record, so we waited one additional week. So we did 2 episodes for the first week, 2 episodes for this week. Next week it's only going to be 1 episode, episode 5. But we are here today to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of season 2 of the Rings of Power. That Valkyrie girl, Megan, how are you today? Have you watched the shows? Are you looking forward to chatting about them today?
I was today. I watched the shows. I have thoughts. I have feelings, and you're gonna hear about them.
Obviously, there be spoilers. We want to make sure you guys understand. We will be talking about key elements from the show itself, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. So, why don't you start, Megan, with episode 3 from the Rings of Power season 2? What were your thoughts and feelings?
So, episode 3, all I can say is that Beric is the real MVP. That horse.
It's going to be the horse.
Listen, he killed an orc, fought off the spiders, saved his human.
It's true.
That horse is awesome.
It's true. I do find it interesting that there was like probably, I don't know how long it was, but like during the episode, like there was like the horse was the only character on screen. Like,
yeah.
I don't know that I've ever watched a show where like the horse was
that horse is the main character.
The main character, the main point of view narrative of what's going on. So yeah, I definitely found that pretty fascinating. Yeah, good horse, obviously. We learn the fate of Isildur. We do find out what's happened to him, where he's at. So I don't know if this is supposed to be Shelob. I don't know if it's meant to be of the same type of race or species. I don't know if it's supposed to be something else entirely. I don't know if it's supposed to be actually Shelob herself. There's no speech, there's no talking, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's no speaking, so my guess is not maybe her like children.
Yeah, it's just interesting to have such a blatant seemingly similarity in what we're seeing and not sort of address it. And it's kind of what I've been feeling throughout this entire thing. And I know people complaining about the pacing and such, but there's still so many moments and such where it doesn't seem like there's quite enough exposition, like there's not enough being kind of explained to us. And this feels a little bit like that. Like he just wakes up in this spider cave and he's webbed to the wall and he makes his way out, but there's another orc there and he's still alive somehow too. And they fight and then he gets out because the horse comes back for him. And, you know, it's interesting that that's how they do that. And then, of course, he then meets Astrid, I believe her name is. I don't know if it's Estrid or Astrid. My apologies. He meets her. They start making their way towards a former Númenórean colony that has our boy Theo that we met last season, and the elf that we had also met last season, whose name is
Arondir.
But before that, Arondir does seemingly save our boy Isildur and Estrid from attack of bandits. This episode did bounce around a few different narratives quite extensively, back and forth. But a lot of it was taken up by a lot of the politicking that's going on in Númenor itself. So we do get a chance to go back to Númenor. The queen has returned along with the captain of the guard with her. She is blind now, but there are someone
needs to tell the actress that.
There are some machinations going on within with, I believe his name is Farazan, is the gentleman that's clearly after the power of the throne and such. And some visiting dignitaries show up and they seem to be encouraging him to do this. This part feels very much like, and I've heard this referred to, like this is Amazon's Game of Thrones. And this is where it feels very much like that, where there's political intrigue and back-talking and backstabbing. It's interesting that they're spending as much time giving us the internal politics of Númenor.
I mean, it makes sense considering what they did last season. Like, we got a lot of the royal family and the drama of that when we were with Númenor last season.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like there was more because Galadriel was there. It felt like that was sort of the tie-in to the rest of the
yes,
story.
but now they've already invested in this storyline, so like they're not going to just drop Numenor because the elves are gone.
100%. Yes, and I mean, if you're familiar with the lore, Numenor has its own issues that are going to arise, of course. But yes, I do find that it's intriguing, but at the same time, it's like I really hope it leads to something more substantial that again will tie into the rest of the story. That's the tough part right now, is finding things that tie into the greater narrative. But one thing that does tie into the greater narrative that we jump over to as well is we do get to catch up with our dwarven friends as they are now in Eregion, speaking with Celebrimbor and Anasar about the rings. So like all the posturing is done now. Like they're like, we can make you some rings and they're going to be super powerful and you can really use them. And
I loved so much how sassy Durin was to Anatar. He was having none of it. He's like, you don't know Elrond. You don't talk to him. There's no way he would say that shit.
Yep. I do. My only takeaway from this, and I don't get me wrong, I enjoy it thoroughly, but I feel like they're really banging the drum of Disa and Durin being like your typical married couple type of thing. Like he's staunch and stubborn, but secretly is a softie, and she's like appears soft, but she's really like wears the pants and is the one directing everything and that type of thing. So I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like it's so tropey and so cliche.
I know, but like you don't get a lot of like married couples in these sort of shows, so it's nice.
The offer is made, and we get some sort of, I guess we would say, catharsis with Durin the younger finally going to see Durin the Elder, presenting him with this option from Celebrimbor about these rings of power that may be able to save the Dwarven Kingdom. But him still expressing his doubts based on probably the lack of Elrond there and whoever this Anatar is, and he doesn't trust the rings, and he's probably wise not to, because something happens at the end of this episode that
that's when you just see Anatar with the hunk of metal being like, I'm gonna just.
So a big deal is made of the fact that Anatar, who we know to be Sauron, did not have anything. He did not touch the elven rings as they were crafted. He clearly is touching the rings that are going to be crafted for the dwarves, and I imagine probably even more involved when it comes to the rings of men. And then, of course, we know he makes one more ring. We do get some more rather, I want to say, simple manipulation of Celebrimbor by Sauron. To the point where Celebrimbor is going to message Lindon and tell them, "Oh, I'm closing the forge, and we're not doing anything else, and we're not taking anybody in, blah blah blah." And in truth, of course, he's like, "No, this is my time. I've worked so long to get to this point."
Honestly, the look on, I'm gonna keep saying like interchangeably Sauron or Anatar, but like the look on that guy's face when he so easily was like, "I'm just gonna write and lie to the king." I don't think he thought it would be that easy to convince him.
That's what I mean. Like it's both. Is my problem with this entire partnership is his efforts at manipulation seem so juvenile and simple, and they all work flawlessly on Celebrimbor because he's just so easily manipulated.
I don't know, I think it's also showing just like the character flaws that were already there in Celebrimbor. Like what you were saying, he's not a smart man or like a strong man. He's just very good at what he does, and he knows that that's the only thing he's good at, so he doesn't want to lose the thing he's good at.
Nope, that's fair. And like we said, we see at the end of the episode that Anatar, who we know is Sauron, does involve himself in the making of the Dwarven Ring. So Durin's the younger suspicion is obviously clearly valid. Much more so than Elrond's, but it is unfortunately it's not going to matter. We know the dwarves get the rings. Sorry, spoilers, guys. We know the dwarves get the rings. So, and I feel like they're in the exact same. It's interesting, the parallels. They're in the exact same position as the elves. The elves were dying and would have to leave if they didn't heal the tree, and the rings magically heal the tree. The dwarves are dying, and it's not gonna work unless they leave the mountain. And now they're gonna get rings that are gonna let them stay in the mountain. So. I'm curious what the realms of men are going to need to be able to take on the rings. Although I get the sense that just the promise of power will be enough.
Oh yeah, for men, yes.
A couple things I did want to point out. Obviously, we don't get to see them, but we get the sense that the Ents make an appearance here towards the end of the episode as well, when they are going to get Isildur's horse, who he clearly loves, that he's willing to put his life on the line to save this horse.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew you would enjoy that. We hear some creaking of wood, and then the Theo looks way up.
Looking way up. As soon as they did that, I'm like, Ents, and then
we knew it was Ents, and we do get to see that in episode 4. We do get to finally meet a couple of Ents. But then at the end, of course, we talked about before, and it is sort of foreshadowed, is we get the coronation ceremony in Numenor.
That entire thing just, like, okay, we get that the queen is controversial. There's people that want her and there's people that don't, and it becomes a whole hullabaloo. But, like, they bring up when they're making her dress or deciding what to do for her dress. You're wearing white. If an eagle shows up at your coronation, it'll be a great symbol of, like, this is important, you're the one. And then the eagle shows up, and the other dude just walks towards it down the row, and suddenly everyone believes that it's for him and not for her.
Okay, but we are missing like one very, very important chunk right in the middle of there, and that is the reveal of the Palantir.
Yes.
That the queen has been using, that admits to everybody that has been using. And I had forgotten up until this point as well, the enmity and the hatred that the Numenorians have for elves and all things elven, and it's an elven artifact. So as soon as it's revealed that that Palantir is an elven artifact and that she's been using it, and especially when, and I forget his name right now, but the captain of her guard reaches down to touch it and he can't, it like blasts him away, but clearly she can handle it. I think that's why when the eagle shows up and Pharazôn goes out to see it, everybody kind of turns. Now you'll notice one of the toadies, one of the dignitaries, is the one that starts chanting
he's the one that starts chanting it. Yes,
but it's Panic at the Disco as soon as it's revealed that she's using the elven artifact. Like she's already done at that point, in my view. So when the eagle does show up and he walks out to it, he took advantage of a moment, is what happened, right?
Yeah, they took advantage of the moment. If her supporters or advisors had any brains, they would have turned around and been like, see, it's a human. It doesn't matter that she's used, like, the elf thing. She still has the favor of, like, whatever. It came to her coronation.
I feel like the only person that would have been able to say that was blasted across the room. Like, I don't know who else, like maybe the old guy that was ministering.
I was going to say the guy that was about to do the ceremony.
It feels like it was already Panic at the Disco at that point. Like there was already so much uproar that it was an elven artifact. Like it already feels like it was in a bad state. Like they were already leaning away from her so much, and then he just walks up to the eagle and everybody's like, oh, that guy. But I do see what you're saying. It's a little bit clunky. Like even I am, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, well, it'll all be fine. Like this heals all wounds. The eagle shows up, so it doesn't matter if she's been using this elven artifact. I'm like, oh wait, their hatred of the elven stuff is so deeply mired in their entire culture that as soon as it was revealed, as soon as she admitted to the whole group, like, yeah, I've been using it, she was all done. Like that's it for her, unfortunately. So the coup is real. It's happened. That's episode 3, and what they've done here on the show thus far too is, especially with the differing episodes, is because there are so many different plot lines and characters that episode 4 just focuses on a completely different set of plotline and character. This one really focused a lot on Elrond and Galadriel and their quest to get to Eregion so they can finally warn Celebrimbor that the guy he's working with is
like, hey, the dude you're working with is Sauron.
Yeah. Do you honestly think, as an aside, that at this point that Celebrimbor would care? Do you think he would just automatically be like, well, I want to stop then? Like, he's working on the work he's wanted to do.
I was going to say, I don't think he's going to want to stop. I think he would agree to having him removed and put somewhere else, but he would want to keep Lady in the Rings.
Do you feel like he can without Anatar, though? It feels like he needs...
Oh, he already did the other ones.
He did, but still, just because Sauron didn't, in this case, Halbrand, didn't physically touch them, that doesn't mean that he wasn't a guiding hand throughout the process. I think the point is, I don't think Celebrimbor feels like he can actually do this without. If he felt he could do it without, he wouldn't have invited Halbrand back into the fort. He was told not to treat with this dude, and he invited him up, and then he started making shit with them. And then it's revealed that he's this elven. You know what I mean? Like, it feels to me like he needs him at this point to really do what he needs to do.
Maybe.
I don't think we'll ever get a chance to find out. I don't know if Celebrimbor ever finds out that this is Sauron, in fact, and not...
No, probably not.
Anatar or whoever it is that he's supposed to be. But we do get Elrond and Galadriel, and Elrond is still being Elrond. I think what we're supposed to understand is he would be able to bring us a more objective viewpoint because he is a politician. He's a learned man. He's educated. He's obviously very sharp, but more to the point, he's not been influenced by the power of the ring type of thing. So he would be the counterbalance to Galadriel. And that's why Gil-galad, the High King, clearly tried to put them together, is to make sure that one would balance the other out. Because I have to be honest with you, not only is Elrond still kind of a whiny bitch about everything, especially the rings, Galadriel, every time there's any ill portent of any kind, everything is just, this must be the work of Sauron. And by the way that actress rolls her R's, but I'm kind of getting tired of like every black omen, every dark footstep, every whisper from the wood is all. I mean,
the problem is the route that they're taking with them because they're following him. She's right. No, up until this point, it's been correct. We get a lovely shot. By the way, I love how they're doing, like they show you on the map where they're going, and then they kind of like zoom in on the map, and that becomes the scene. It's very, very cool how they do that. But then we see this blasted bridge. We don't know that it was Sauron that blasted the bridge. We never saw that on the show. You don't have the first clue if that's what that happened. But she's like, this must be the work of Sauron. And I'm like, okay. And then she sees a vision with a ring. One of the things, the bridge reminded me. One of the things that I cannot stand in plot storytelling, and it's something to do with like the way they shot it as well. Oh no, the bridge has been washed out. We need to walk 2 weeks in this direction or a couple days in that direction instead of just taking 4 hours to climb down the side of the hill, go across the river, and climb up the other side.
It is a bit lazy writing, especially when like we could go this way that's nice and safe that'll take us a month, or we could go this super dangerous way that will take us 2 days or whatever. Like, guys, I mean, come on. Like that's, I mean, we could have framed it a lot better than that. I do feel like that's probably my biggest beef with the show when we're talking about Elrond and Galadriel, when we're talking about Durin and Disa, and we're talking about now that like there's so many things that are just so tropey. Yeah, and of course we do get some more halflings. In this case, we do hear the Harfoot term again, but that term is rejected by the new halflings, and they are referring to themselves as stewards. Yeah. Clearly, they're meant to represent the same ethnicity as the key wanderer that we saw in the first season. And of course they're very suspicious of our friends Nori and Poppy when they first encounter them and such, but then they get some revelation that they have ties to one of their ancestors, it sounds like, anyways.
Yeah, and one of the people that left this like area of ruin that has the Stewars is the one that became a Hardfoot and started wandering. And he was looking, which took me way too long to realize what he was looking for. He was looking for the Shire, because they're trying to find the holes that are in soft ground, which I only realized like an hour after watching the episode, which made me feel so dumb.
Well, it sounded like this sort of aloof prophecy as well. And for stuff like this, you just never know if any of that's just pie in the sky dreaming, or if it's something that's actually going to be a thing that's going to happen. Yep. So I think you can be forgiven as far as that goes. But
okay,
we took a narrative that already felt disconnected from the rest of everything going on with the Eastar and Nori and Poppy, and now we even have those people doing their own things. Speaking of the Eastar, he meets a character from the books that was conspicuous by his absence in the films, and has been, if there's been one comment about the films that came out more than anything else, is like, why wasn't this guy in the films? And that is, of course, Tom Bombadil, who we meet. And clearly has some powers of his own, talks about being of great age, mimicking different voices, lighting all the fires, turning paper into food. Like, clearly he is a power of some kind. I don't know if it's ever even detailed in the books and in the lore what or who Tom Bombadil really is, but...
So when I looked it up just to check and see, because I'm like, I have no context for this. I should know way more Lord of the Rings lore than I do, but like, for what I do know... apparently he is a primordial spirit. So just, it's been around forever.
He does in the book. He definitely felt, and I'm going strictly by the trilogy. I don't know if he appears in any of the ancillary works that were put out, but in the book, he's very whimsical, very lighthearted, and almost not quite a fop, but you wouldn't take him seriously unless you'd seen him perform some of these feats. I do feel like they've toned that down quite a bit on the show. He's a little like weird, yes, but he's not like. I think he was supposed to be an allegory for like a hippie or something like that in the original books, and it's just
he talks to the trees. He got the tree to spit out Gandalf after Gandalf got eaten.
All right, clearly this is Gandalf. Like I don't know that we could even argue that it's not Gandalf.
Tom, if it's not, I will be shocked at this point.
You're meant to fight both Sauron and whatever the other thing he said that he was
the evil wizard.
The evil wizard, yeah. So who we still don't know, by the way. So there's references to the Dark Wizard that's played by Ciarán Hinds. We don't know who that is or what faction that particular wizard represents. I don't know if it's a creation for the show like Adar or if it has an actual lore allegory like the Númenóreans and such. But I mean, I guess we'll see, I suppose. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Again, like you said, we have lots of show left. It's not like we don't have a ton of show.
There is plenty of time to find out. One thing that I did like that they did this episode, I liked them including in the whites and getting that like lore of needing to kill them with their own weapon, like
the
getting that into the series.
That was extraordinarily cool. And again, same thing. Like I had someone message me the other day, and they're like, "Are you watching the show?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, what is it that's drawing you to it? What do you like about it?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, it's beautiful. Like the show is so gorgeous, and you can see where I know they've kind of gotten some grief about how much money they're spending on this show, but it's all on the screen.
You can see where that money's going.
You can see it. So the scene with the barrel whites is it's movie level quality. It looks so good. If we know, I know they've committed to 5 seasons. I don't know if that means it's only going to be 5 seasons or if that's just the initial commitment. But I do feel like now it feels like some things are going by quickly, like Anatar and the forging of the Elven Rings, and now the forging of the Dwarven Rings, and then it feels like some parts of it are just so far away from where they need to be, and so disparate from each other.
Yeah, it's odd knowing where it's gonna go, seeing how much like the orcs and everyone that eventually becomes Sauron's army, how much they all hate Sauron.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I get the sense that it's supposed to be like evil begetting evil and ruling through fear and intimidation and that kind of thing. And I think that was what, and by the way, I've seen this meme all over the internet since episode 3 came out, but the whole thing with the orc families and children.
That was interesting to see, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently this is what everyone that is a Tolkien purist is taking issue with, is the orcs aren't meant to be a sympathetic type where they're not meant to be husband and wife and father children. They were all supposed to be male. They were all supposed to be just inherently evil. I know the lore initially was they were elves that fell so far from grace that they became orcs and such, but I don't know. I feel like it's certainly not the only change they've made for the sake of the show, and I don't feel like this is, I don't get the panic, I guess. Like I don't get why everybody's in such
I don't hate it. It's weird like knowing where it goes in the movies, but like you don't see much of it. It's very like minimal, and they're still terrible whenever you see them ever like out and around. So,
and it only makes sense because unless they're individually immortal, and unless there were millions upon millions upon millions of them corrupted initially, then by the time
you need to make more
time of Frodo and all, there wouldn't be any left. So obviously the Uruk-hai that we see in the movies are made from basically, so I mean we get that wouldn't be the case, but as far as like orcs and goblins and such go, it's hard to envision how there could be so many of them across thousands and thousands of years if they're not procreating in some way, shape, or form. So,
and like you need to breed more orcs if you want to continue having orcs.
That's all I'm saying, right? So will we see orc kids playing around? Like, are they really going to lean into like the sympathetic orcs just trying to, like, are the orcs Boba Fett now? Or are they just simple orcs trying to make their way through the galaxy? Or do we still want to hate? And because by the end of episode 2, of course, we get to see Galadriel go up against like a whole company of orcs, and by the way, kick all kinds of ass. There's no sympathetic treatment for the orcs that we've run into there. It's just it felt like one particular moment in episode 3 when speaking with Adar. By the way, they call him father. Like they're so attached to Adar, and he seems to genuinely care about them and their plight and such. But having that orc just say like, we have a home. Like we're safe. We're good here. Like, do we have to go to war? Let's just hang out here. And Adar's like, no. We got to go kill Sauron. Sorry, dude. It sucks. Go say goodbye to your wife and kid. We got to go kill some people, right?
Yep.
And yet by the end of episode 4, it's like the orcs are like, I'll cut off your left thumb. And if you tell me where they are, I'll let you keep your right thumb. And then they have like the big group evil cackle, like, and you're like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to actually feel about these guys? Am I supposed to be sympathetic to their plight, or must be like, fuck those guys are terrible? So,
well, I was gonna say, even like historically, groups that are quite like savage and vicious still have like their people that are their family or whatever.
Sure, but when we think of the movies, we never saw the Uruk-hai as anything but savage world beaters, and we never even saw the orcs and goblins as anything more. I mean, they were silly at times, but they were still malevolently silly. You know what I mean? Like, there was never a tender moment. Again, I don't really get all the backlash for it, but it does have me now kind of two minds about them. So I don't know if that's something they're going to pursue further.
My mental association that I do, I just consider it the same way when you see like Nazi soldiers in any like World War II thing. I'm like, they probably have a wife and kids at home, but they're pieces of shit.
Is there anything that we didn't quite cover, Megan, that you wanted to make sure we highlighted from these 2 episodes?
I think that's basically everything. I know that there's plot points we haven't touched on, but like those are the main bits that are sticking in my brain 2 hours after watching it.
Yeah, but if there are key plot points you think we missed talking about or what you should have addressed, go ahead and put it down in the comments below. This time next Friday, guys, it will be The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 5, and Episode 5 only. We are now caught up. Again, please smash that like button, that subscribe button. And hey, you're on our channel, The Geeks and Company. We've got all kinds of different content coming out right now. We have the podcast that comes out, The Geek Boutique, every Thursday live at 7 o'clock, but that also appears here on YouTube, as well as we're doing some celebrity interviews. We're doing some cosplay interviews. All of that stuff is going live now as we speak. So hit that notification bell so that you guys get a notification every time we're uploading some cool content like this and like that. So Megan, anything else before we sign off for the day?
I think that's pretty good. We'll pick this back up next week.
We'll see you guys next Friday. Stay geeky, everyone.